What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast. And it's been a little while since we've officially sat down in the podcast station.
Yeah, there's so much new stuff down here, all these new toys and gadgets.
Yeah, you haven't been on the official mics yet.
No, it's really nice. You can see it picking up everything, no echoes.
I know, dude.
Pretty awesome.
I absolutely love it, and it definitely is nice. We haven't utilized it enough because of the busy schedule. So many of our podcasts have been like at 5:30 a.m. on the road via Facebook Lives.
Right.
And so obviously, like, sound quality is not the best. The content's good, but it's exciting when we have the time to mesh, get down here on the podcast desk, and actually just like cut it up. So I'm pretty excited that we had the time to do this today.
Yeah, no, me too.
How long's it been since we've done a hunting podcast?
I want to say it was last hunting season. We tried getting together a couple different times. I'm like, hey, I got an hour here. And you're like, well, I can do it this afternoon. No, I can't do it that afternoon. And I mean, it was just back and forth kind of all winter long and spring. And
yes, I think the most time we got to spend together was our New Mexico trip when we swung down really quick over basically an extended weekend with a couple buddies and hunted Barbary sheep for a few days. But that was
we can talk about that.
We didn't.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of those. I didn't end up harvesting anything last fall, and we didn't draw any New Mexico tags, so we just looked at a couple over-the-counter units. And Jordan called me one day, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? End of the month, beginning of next month." I'm like, I don't know, thinking we're gonna do a podcast or something. He's like, "Oh no, you want to blaze down to New Mexico, hunt some over-the-counter stuff?" I was just like, huh?
Leaving in 2 weeks.
Well, let me see if I can get that all set up.
And then it turned into, well, do you mind if I text so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm going to text so-and-so. So we ended up getting we got Aaron and Travis to come down with us too. And dude.
That was actually, I had more fun with those guys and just their reaction and seeing them, experiencing that stuff. And that was kind of my goal going down. We had both harvested nice sheep the year before.
Yeah.
And we were kind of in it for whatever. And, basically wanted to look at getting those two guys, their tags filled first.
Absolutely. I've been lucky enough to kill a couple sheep. We went down together a couple years ago, and you killed a nice sheep. And, dude, it was like, we were in it for the adventure on that trip and like share that adventure with a couple other guys that were so pumped to be invited and so pumped to go along on that hunt. And honestly, that was super rewarding.
Yeah, no, it's a kind of, I don't know if it's like a daunting thing, going out of state, so far away, it's 17, 18 hours away.
Yeah.
Going to a different state, different place that you don't know. But, we did it. Cruised all the way down there. Ended up doing a Airbnb, which was a lot better than camping or roughing it.
Yeah, where we were hunting wasn't much of a drive every day from Airbnb we found. So we were like, let's just do that and have the showers, have like some decent sleep, like be able to cook meals every night. Like
so much nicer.
It was a fun hunt at the end of the year,
right?
To really wrap up the year and do that, and not everything has to be like massively hard backcountry like camping. Like the hunt itself, tough backcountry stuff.
It's a lot of hiking.
A lot of hiking. But it was just so cool to be able to like to put a bow on that, bringing down Travis and Aaron. Like they haven't done like a big out of state hunt like that before. Where like it was their first times doing that, and so to be able to go with a couple guys that had done it before, do that every year like we do. And to experience that, even though we hadn't hunted that unit before, it was new to us. We had sheep hunted before, and so we got to bring our experience kind of into them, and they got to just like, I think they had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and they learned a lot about, like even they admitted, learned a lot about glassing.
Yes.
Persistence. It takes a lot down in that country. Just keep going, keep grinding.
Yeah, because so much of that sheep hunt is just like. It's not fast.
No.
It's a slow go. You glass, you move up a canyon a little ways, you glass, you move up the canyon a little ways, you glass. Because it's just like there's so many nooks and crannies and turns and cuts in those canyons. Sometimes you only walk like 40, 50 yards and you glass again. because you're looking at so much new country, and if a sheep's bedded there 500 yards, 600 yards away, they're gonna see you if you're moving too fast.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you're moving slow, you're glassing, you're catching them before they catch you, type of thing. So many times. That's one of the ways we've hunted sheep successfully. I know Justin, that's a big way that he hunts sheep, is he just moves up these canyons, glasses, and that's where we've learned so much is from him, obviously, on how to do that. And it's a successful way. He kills a ton of sheep doing it.
Right. Yeah, we did sit, at the base of some of the mountains and glass the whole side of a mountain.
Yeah.
Just sit there for a long time and pick it apart. But man, looking up at, you're trying to pick a line, and if I find something up on this shelf, it's going to take 2+ hours to get up to where they were at. And then you have to look and see if it's even possible or safe to go up there. There was a couple of spots that were really sketchy, and we're like, we're going to see something up there.
We're going to see when they're not be able to get it.
Right.
Because there is some stuff in there that, like, I'm not going to go hike that edge to go get a stupid sheep. Like, it's just not going to do it. Like, and there is some of that stuff up there that are just straight downs for 1,000, 1,500 feet. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, rough country. Like we said, we did not have any luck on that trip. We learned a lot about a new unit. We saw a lot of cool animals right away the first morning. We're driving in, and we ran into a lot of other hunters in that unit, which could be expected for
in that one area in the unit there was.
But yeah, we were driving in, and just as the sun's coming up, and 60 yards from the truck is a giant bull oryx.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And everybody's jaw drops. That's the first thing we see. And, we're all looking at this bull like, no way. He's just standing there looking at us, posing perfect.
Well, what was so cool about that, too, is, like, when we were going into that area, I was like, you guys, I'm like, this is oryx country. And me and Dustin have both killed oryx. So we were both like, I'm like, Dustin, is this not oryx country? I'm like, this is freaking like an oryx bottom right here.
Yeah, these little arroyos that
like thick
weave through there. And
I'm like, this is oryx country. And we turned that corner, and I'm like, yeah, see? There's an oryx right there. He's a big old bull. And like, he was a good bull. I bet he was a 37-inch bull. Yeah. Heavy old bull.
Big, huge neck. I mean, big body.
Yeah.
I mean,
I do not pass bull like he would be. If I had a tag on that bull would be dead. Like, great bull. And then we ended up seeing some more oryx that morning. We saw a giant cow, and I looked back to that footage of that dude. She's totally pregnant. Big old belly on her. I really didn't notice that when I was glassing that morning, but a big cow. And then later that week we saw a lot of oryx that trip. Some cool looking ones, some crazy horned oryx with some curves.
Yeah, some curves, a couple broken horns.
I mean, just a lot of oryx. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we actually glassed up some desert bighorns as well, which for me, like, that made my trip just because I'm obsessed. But that was cool. I mean, a lot of them too, like 30, 40 maybe. I don't know.
There's a couple different bands of them came through, and we're like, oh, look, there they are. And then all of a sudden more came from around the mountain. Like, there's a bigger ram. There's holy cow. And, a couple of them were collared. That was pretty cool to see that. New Mexico Fish and Wildlife is, really trying to keep these bighorn around. They're really studying them, and that's kind of nice to see.
Well, and it was so cool too, because it was like a chance because we had talked about how we had hunted that same canyon multiple days, and we were like, well, sheep a lot of times they just continue to move. So even though you don't see sheep in there one day, you can go back in those same canyons and still sometimes find sheep. Like, we've done it. We've killed sheep in those kind of canyons. And so it was cool, I think, for Aaron and Travis to see that how those sheep were just moving, and they just move around those mountains, continue to move, where it was like, okay, it wasn't the sheep we were hunting, but they got to see what sheep do, and they just like continue to just meander and like, work the sides of the mountains. So just because you're looking at one mountain one day and there's no sheep there, it doesn't mean you can't go back there in 12 hours and there's going to be sheep right where you looked 12 or 16 or 24 hours before. So it was just, I think that was cool for them to see how just sheep continually.
And they're not really like deer. They're not patternable.
No, and there's not a bunch of them. Like, you know what I mean? You're just like, out here you just see so many deer. You go on a deer hunt, even though you're not seeing deer you want to shoot, you see a lot of them. Where sheep hunting, you can go and not even see a single sheep for days.
Yeah. Yeah, like we did.
Like we did, exactly. And we could go back next time and find 2 bands of 40. I mean, it's just
right.
The way that kind of hunt goes.
We ran into a couple other hunters, and they said they were there. They said they were watching some ewes and some smaller rams.
Mm-hmm.
We just weren't seeing them. We did go up on the top side of the mountain. We tried that. That was really cool.
That was fun.
We ran into some elk hiking in. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just different country. Hiked 3 miles back up in there, and we kind of got to a rim where we thought we were gonna glass down, and we're just gonna sit up there all day. And we hiked up there, got up, and looked straight down, and it's 1,250 feet straight vertical cliff.
It was epic.
I mean, cool awesome stuff. Overlook. Impossible to hunt.
We weren't gonna hunt it, no.
So
that was so cool. I mean, you could have hunted that north side. So we glassed that south side just because it looks so cool. I'm like, I wanted to find a sheep in that, but you weren't gonna go kill one on it. But yeah, that other side, that north side of it, we could have got down into and killed one for sure if we would have found one in there. It would have took time.
Yeah.
But you could have, and especially with having 4 guys, we could have easily had one guy stay up and glass, 3 guys go down there, kill, and 3 guys could kill a sheep, and or one guy could kill a sheep. You had 3 guys pack the thing out, make it pretty easy to get back up out of there because it was steep, but it would have made the load pretty light. It would have been ideal. It would have been an ideal spot to kill one. That was a cold morning. It was cold and windy up there.
Yeah.
And we were just up in the brunt of it, man.
Well, we had been, that I got sunburned on that first day, so I had the David Hasselhoff sunburn from unzipping my hoodie.
Oh, dude, it was nice. It was 70s the whole time.
Yeah.
That morning was just happened to be, it was just up top that it was just cold, but it ended up being a nice day anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think we learned a lot in that area, and like what we would do the following time, go back, and we both struck out in New Mexico again this year. So who knows, we might make that a second annual trip for the coming year or something, and do it again, and maybe do it a little bit differently if we were going to hunt that top side, how we would do that, and have some more options. But
yeah,
that's the point of it, is to continually learn on just how you would navigate certain areas, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, and it's not that. That's also what it's not easy. It's hard.
It is hard. Yeah, you're not gonna. And I actually didn't even buy a tag. Like, we went down there and we were driving down, and I was gonna buy one. I was like, I got 3 other guys in this truck. I'm like, I know how sheep hunts go. I'm like, I'm not gonna spend $380 on the tags. I just let it go. I'm like, I'm just gonna go glass and try to find sheep for you guys. So it ended up, after the drive down there, I'm like, if we end up killing 2 on the first day or something, I'll buy the over the counter tag and go from there. But I'm like, I'm just gonna let it go. I actually just forgot to buy my tag, and then I realized maybe that was a good idea. I forgot to buy it. So
it is what it is. I mean, it was a fun trip. It was an adventure.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I look forward to doing it again.
That was February. So let's rewind back to September.
It's a big rewind, but let's do it.
Yeah.
So we started backwards. We started with how we ended our year, our 2020. That was how we ended. And it was obviously a 2021 hunt, but that February hunt, I always feel like it's like the wrap up of your year before. So that was the wrap up of 2020. So
yeah, all my gear's still out from the previous year, and we're
kind of half
ready to go.
So okay, jumping back to September 2020. Here we go.
Yeah, my September, Neil and I went out west again, and the previous year we had both shot mid 150s, nice muleys out there, and
you had a heck of a hunt.
It was
you guys
awesome.
Just had a blast. You guys have heard that podcast. I mean, if you haven't, jump back
jump
back to last year and listen to the one with Neil and Dustin.
We did two nice muleys in 4 days, and this year, and the thing was I know some other guys that hunt close to that area, and they took some nice ones with rifles last year. We got back in there this year, and there just was not, mature deer back in there.
Yeah.
There was one deer that I'd seen, that was a nice 4x4, and I was kind of watching him, but I was really looking farther back in, and we just weren't picking them up.
Yeah.
And it was hot. It was in the 90s during the day, and we had a jaunt to get there every morning. So, I mean, it was late nights, early mornings. It was wearing on a guy. I ended up glassing up a nice one, that 4x4, and I finally decided I was going to go after him just because he was in velvet.
Yeah, of course.
And
they were not in velvet very long this year.
No, dude, for as hot as it was, I thought they'd stay a little bit longer. So we were hunting similar time frame, days apart probably?
No, we were hunting the same days. We were both back at the same time because I got back from Nevada. I actually was hunting in Nevada late August. I was elk hunting and antelope hunting. I got back on the 1st, the day before the 1st, and then I hunted on the 2nd and the 3rd.
Okay, yep.
And you guys were there obviously the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, I think.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and so, previous years, a lot of these years we have velvet all the way up to like, you start seeing them come off around the 4th, but a lot of times they'll hold on to like the bigger bucks will hold on to like the 7th even. I've seen, a lot of years. And it was not the case this year.
No.
It just was totally really early.
Yeah, I had that one that I went after was in full velvet. A lot of the little guys had shed theirs already, which I thought was...
Do you remember what day that was?
I want to say the 3rd, 3rd or 4th.
Yep. Yeah, and where I was at, I hunt just a few miles from Dustin, actually, as the crow flies. And I kind of had the same problem the year before. They were seeing some nice deer, and I was just a few miles away, and it was the exact opposite. I wasn't finding diddly for anything decent.
Right.
And even this year was, 2020 was kind of the same way. I was seeing way more deer than I had seen the year before, which I was pumped about, but it was a lot of still just young deer. And the one I ended up shooting was probably the most mature one there. But yeah, same thing. Everything was on the 2nd, was already stripped of velvet. With that first morning, me and Matthew hiked up in there, and this buck that was over here was the only buck left in velvet. So that was on the 2nd. So you're on the 3rd.
Yeah.
And you're like everything's stripped as well except for your 4x4.
Yeah, so I ended up deciding to go after him. I got in pretty close, 42 I think is what I ended up sliding down in. And drew back. He was level with me. He was tucked under a cut bank. And as I leaned out, I didn't lean out far enough. Clipped just a couple blades of grass, and I just watched my arrow. I could see the side of my arrow dive down and hit right behind him. So it pretty much like sprayed him with dirt. He took off out of there, and I was like, crap. So the next day, I find him again, and then that's when I called Neil. I'm like, all right, I got him. I'm going after him. And he's like, well, I'm not seeing anything. I'm coming over.
Yeah.
I'll help you out. Perfect. This is awesome.
Yeah, way more fun that way anyway, right?
Yeah, so he gets over. I'm like, yep, he's here. He's in this cut. Neil comes up. He's like, oh, I got him. He's with like 4 smaller bucks. Yep, that's him. And then this lone calf comes bebopping over the hill. Brr, brr, brr.
Cows ruin everything. Dude.
Yeah.
I hate cows.
And he kicked him out of there.
They taste good, though.
Kicked him out of there and runs, he runs around. And I'm still got eyes on him. And I'm like, bump up, come up to me. Neil's probably 3/4 of a mile away. Mm-hmm. And he's walking over. And I got to bump up to keep watching this, see which cut this buck's going to go down. And all of a sudden, Neil gets up to me. He's white as a ghost. Oh, and sweating, and I'm like, what is wrong? He's like, I just ran into a rattlesnake. Yeah. It was right there.
Of course he did.
I'm like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, too.
Oh, yeah. So then we're just snaky after that.
You do. You're almost like that the rest of the season.
Yes.
Like, you just turn that way, and then you can go 2 more years without seeing one, and you're fine.
Right.
It's just goofy how your mindset switches.
Right. Yeah, so then that, I ended up getting... So he went around the one knob that I was kind of glassing from, and he was kind of going to take his back escape route out, and I tried to get into where I thought he was, and sure enough, he was right in the cut that I needed. I just worked my way up, and I saw the top of some fuzzy antlers, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. 7 yards. So I was right in there on him, and almost too close for comfort.
Yeah, yep.
And, I drew a couple times, and I didn't want to take a step because it was crunchy. Mm-hmm. But I also was not taking my boots off because there was cactus, like, all along that rim of that
there's
cut
no
bank.
bootless hunting where we hunt.
No, it was not Yeah, I was just going to go nice and slow. So I ended up, creeping up and finally took one big step. And right as I stepped over, right as I could see him, his body was tucked behind this dirt mound. And I'm like, crap. And then they jumped up. I shot. I got a good hit right, just to the left of the spine, right where I was aiming.
And you were pretty much shooting straight down.
Yes. Yep. Straight down. Saw the arrow go in. He ran down to the bottom. And as he started to come up the other side, the arrow shot back out. And I was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Then he ran over about 100, 120 yards, stopped, looked at me, and I could see a little bit of blood on his side.
Yep.
And high where I'd hit. And then they just took off. And I was like, yes, I get on, I get my arrow, and the broadhead's still on. I've got probably 8 to 10 inches of penetration. I'm like, this is really weird. Like, how did this come back out?
Yeah.
And I'm shooting expandables, 2-inch sever, and what had happened, so then Neil comes walking over, and I'm like, hey, I got an arrow in him. And
at this point, you're thinking that deer's like over the hill dead.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking maybe max 300-400 yards.
Yeah.
Like right where I saw it go down, like it got in some goodies in there. And we looked for it, and he came over and he's like, oh, yeah, they're in the next county. They were running super fast. Oh, man.
You're like, what?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of blood. We looked at the arrow, and he's like, well, this is weird. Usually they break off in there if they're, if they get in those ribs and stuff. And it wasn't. This full arrow, full broadhead still on there.
Weird.
So we looked for about 3 hours. Couldn't find him. It was getting hot. We were running low on water. Decided to hike back out. And then that whole way out, I'm walking, and Neil's behind me, and I'm like, get up here. We're trying to talk, and he's like, I'm like, oh, I'm walking because you don't want to get run into a snake. And
we did. More dangerous to be the guy behind.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the second person that's going to get it.
Yeah.
First guy agitates it, the second guy gets bit.
Exactly.
But we ran into a couple more bull snakes and rat snake. Oh my gosh, they were everywhere.
Yeah, it was
I don't know what the deal was.
A lot of snakes around last year.
Disliked them.
Same.
So yeah, that night went back out to a super high point trying to find him. Didn't find him. The next morning went back out to that high point. And I found him.
Yeah.
And he was only about probably 100 yards from where we last saw him, where we last had blood. He got up and he wasn't moving. Like, he was kind of stiff looking, but when he started walking, he wasn't limping, wasn't doing anything. And I looked, and there was no blood on his side.
Yep.
I was like, dang it, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I ended up getting on him again, and found him. He bedded up kind of on a shelf, and I was coming in from the bottom, and I got to about 100 yards, and I needed to, the wind was bad to come in on top of him. It was too long of a shot to go over the little drainage that he was in.
Okay.
So I had to come up from the bottom, and I got to the base of the hill that he was on, and just started making my way up there, and I look up, and he's standing there looking at me at like 60 yards. It's like, crap. So, I'm on my back foot, wrong way, draw. He sees me. He blows out of there, and he just is gone.
Yeah.
And I could see that side, and he was not.
He was fine?
He was just fine. He ran just fine, was walking fine. So, I mean, that was reassuring. I was just sick.
Yeah.
That whole night.
And it's so weird to think about, like, you think about how great, like, these broadheads are, and you think about how, like, great our technology is. It's always hard to, like, believe, like, how can you shoot an animal with one of those things and not have it be a lethal shot in some way, shape, or form?
Right.
It's hard to believe that sometimes, and, like, that's fine, but, dude, it legit happens.
Yes. Yeah, it did.
It's crazy.
What we figured happened, we talked a lot about it, is basically that broadhead went down in.
So
and when
vision shooting, Dustin's almost straight over the top of this buck.
Straight up and down. So when that broadhead went in, it could have been a quarter twist one way or the other, and I would have had a dead deer.
Yes.
So when it expanded, it kind of rolled the ribs down and stayed on the outside of the rib cage and basically just made like a little pocket on the outside.
Yeah, between the skin and the ribs.
Just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
And, that deer, to my knowledge, I mean, he was looking healthy and ran away from me just fine.
Probably got shot in the rifle season.
Probably got shot in the rifle season.
Oh, yeah.
So that was our... we didn't end up filling any tags. That was our September. You went out to Nevada. I think we talked about that. And that was probably the last.
That was probably the last hunting podcast. And I didn't even dive too deep on that. It was such a draining, physically and emotional hunt for me. I didn't even want to talk about it, which was kind of weird. I'm way more open to talk about it now. But it's just weird how, doing that type of level of hunt solo, which I did it solo, no camera. I usually have Matthew with me, right? He's my cameraman. He's with me, so you always have help and backup and just somebody to talk to.
Right.
Where I drove all the way from eastern South Dakota all the way to Nevada. It's a long haul. It's all the way across the country.
Yes.
Did it solo in a day, right up to the mountain, and started hiking back into the backcountry, with 7-10 days of gear on my back. And I've never looked at this country. I've never just what I could find on YouTube. Knew it was going to be rough. And it was. Totally rough. And that even wasn't the part that was fine. I can get over that part. But just dude, the solo-ness of it, that was my first time ever solo backcountry. Mm-hmm. And man, it's challenging. It's challenging on the mind for sure. And then turned around right after that. I had 2 hunts.
You also had some fire issues, the smoke and the haze to deal with.
Yeah, dealing with really bad fires up.
So also playing into that mental game is you're just stacking on these extras that are making things more difficult.
Yeah, and I have no service, you know what I mean? So luckily I had Matt back here in South Dakota that he was running, we were just communicating via satellite phone, and he was just running fire checks for me because there was fires in the unit I was hunting. Mm-hmm. So that was just a little stressful. After a couple of days, there was quite a bit of smoke, and then, after I was a couple of days in, and it kind of started clearing off in this big canyon I was hunting. So I was sweet, good. That evening, I could finally kind of start. I was glassing all the way across the canyon versus just sides of it, and I went to bed was stoked, and I woke up the next morning. I got out of my tent in the dark, and I could just smell heavy fire. Oh, yeah. And so right away I was satellite messaging Matt.
How close is this?
Which he wasn't returning a SAC text at that point because I don't know, it was just early, and I was kind of getting pissed off because I just wanted somebody to dude, I want to know where this fire is at because right. Do I need to hike my butt out, get out of here? Because it went from clear that previous morning to I could smell fire, and I'm it's got to be semi close here, Right. So just the stresses of that was not fun. But it was a fun hunt. Learned a lot, and it was just good for me growth-wise. Had a chance at a big bull, definitely over 350, 360 bull. I was 25, 30 yards from, just had a tree pinned right between us. I came off, dove off this mountain and I was actually going after a different group of bulls, and I kind of jumped off this hill, and he was right behind this tree, and we were both just he couldn't see me and he couldn't smell me because I had the wind, and so he was pissy and he was trying to get me to step out, and I was trying to get him to step out, and it was really cool. A monster bull. That was kind of my one opportunity, and I ended up not getting not even a shot at him. Just couldn't get him out in the open. And then I left from that hunt, went right into an antelope hunt that I drew in Nevada as well. That was just a couple 100 miles straight west. Went and did that solo, not like antelope hunting here in South Dakota. Hunting antelope up in the mountains, which, desert mountains. So that was really cool, but again, would have been way more fun with a buddy when you're hiking across 3-mile basins to climb up to the next mountain. It's really boring by yourself. It just is. I wish there was another way to put it.
Yeah.
It's really boring by yourself. And so I'm just so used to having a companion along, so it was just a challenge for me. It was a good challenge, but I'd rather hunt with a buddy, for sure.
Right.
And so, came back, drove back from that all the way, one-shotted it back to South Dakota. I drove all the way back to eastern South Dakota, picked up my family, and we drove back western South Dakota, and I started right into archery deer season. I didn't hit the opener September 1st, but me and Matthew went out September 2nd, and we saw this buck that I ended up shooting. We didn't stalk him. We go by the old adage, we watched him bed up with another couple bucks. They were not in a spot that we were going to kill them. So we went and glassed another ridge or two. Didn't see anything that we wanted, and so we're like, let's just get out of here. We'll come back in tomorrow. September 3rd, we went back in there. Kind of went up into our normal little spot that we always glass deer from, which is kind of our routine, man. And lo and behold, I spotted this same buck that we said we would have shot the day before. He's definitely not a monster buck, but he was mature and the only one in there left in velvet that we could find. Mm-hmm. And he made the mistake of putting himself like in a spot that I knew he was already dead before we even started that stock. I mean, just one of those spots that we always dream about. Like, we want those deer to bed there, and sure enough, he did. And actually, as this crow flies, all within 100, 200 yards of the previous 2 mule deer bucks that I've killed in that same spot. I mean, if they go into one of those areas, that's what I'm banking on. I go sit up on that hill praying that a good buck goes and beds in those areas, because I know I have a good spot of killing them. I think they feel like they're in these safe spots, and I feel like they're in like the worst spots.
Well, and if it's constant year after year, they're going to be there.
If I have a certain wind, there's a good 50-50 chance that the deer are going to go bed in one of those spots. And so if I can get a couple of good days of wind that blow a certain way in that area, and I have several days to hunt, I have an opportunity to hopefully get a stock in to kill one. And it just depends on if it's a deer I want to kill or not. I mean, that's what it's kind of barreling down to. So it's just a cool area. So yeah, this buck bedded down September 3rd. Everything else is stripped of velvet. He's the only one left. And we get up in there, sneak again, kind of just like your situation. We got right over the top of him, and actually probably got too close. We were 3-4 yards right over the top of him.
So crazy.
And just actually pinned ourselves down. Like almost got too close. Probably should have stayed back another 5 yards and just waited. And so I actually, we hung out there for quite a while, kind of got our wits about us, got that patience reset in. And then finally there was just enough wind kind of being goofy that day. It was really windy that I decided just to go full draw and start, just easing up over the top of him. And he never heard me, never saw me, but he just had that mule deer sixth sense, man. He felt like something was not right. I even had the good sun, so my shadows weren't casting over him. I mean, everything was perfect. And he ended up just like jumping out 20 yards. And luckily, it was the sixth sense thing, so he wasn't. He didn't
know what you were, couldn't smell you. He knew something was up.
He couldn't smell me, just had a sense. And he looked up past me and just like jumped out 20 yards, and I just freaking pile drived him, and he ran, 80 yards and just tipped, blood flying everywhere.
Nice.
I mean, it was awesome. And got up to him, and he wouldn't have that velvet wouldn't have lasted through that evening. I mean, it was just like about ready to goop fall off.
That's good.
Yeah, it was just like he definitely was going to lose that velvet that day. So it was cool to finally, how long we've been after velvet. It was finally cool to make that happen. And get it done. So another dream, kind of accomplished type of thing. And it was cool. It was really cool. And, definitely not a monster mule deer like some of the ones we've chased, but just a good buck and one to be. I was just pumped, dude.
In velvet's a trophy in itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's something that is kind of on everybody's bucket list. And
that early season cape, dude, we got him mounted over here, and I have him on a full. He's pedestal wall mount, and he's full turn looking over, and you got all the the detail and
a super thin coat,
just thin,
really
beautiful. Yeah, change of color in the nose, around the nose and everything. It's just cool, man. I'm pumped with it.
Yeah, no, congrats on that one, man. Good on you. I did another hunt with a neighbor, another buddy.
Yeah.
We tried doing the boat style hunt, and that was interesting.
It was your first boat style hunt, and it was his first mule deer hunt.
Yes.
And so it was kind of a cool combination where you could bring your mule deer skills to the table, but still experience a new style of hunting.
Yeah, so I was kind of set on looking for a big mule deer, and those guys, they were just looking for a basically mature deer, whitetail or muley.
Yeah, because there is some whitetails in that area.
There was. So that first day I call him, and he's like, "Yeah, bring your rain gear." And I'm like, "God dang it!" I'm driving. I'm like, here thinking the weather looks good all week. I'm like, rain gear.
Why would I need rain gear?
So I get down. They pick me up. They had been hunting that morning. They pick me up, and we get out on the water, and waves crashing. I'm getting soaked. I'm like, okay, I see this.
Yeah.
And like we got like 3 miles to go, and I'm like, well, this sucks. Just
dude, it's way harder than a person thinks.
Yeah, like and then I mean you can kind of glass from the boat, but it's hard. You got to get on shore and hike up, and you know those hills off the river are a lot bigger than what they look when you're on the water.
Yeah, those bluffs get you. They can get you.
So yeah, hiking up there, and then you know we didn't really have good luck or any luck. You know, we spotted a few, couldn't get anything the first day. That second morning though, I'm like, well, drop me off on this side. I want to get up and go, and we kind of spread out. I got up and what I thought was a big mule deer. I was like, whoa, you know, right at first light. And then I got the spotter and the phone scope on it, and it was a giant whitetail drop tine.
It's so crazy.
And
the pictures are awesome that you showed me.
I was just like, you have got to be kidding me right now. Like, what is going on?
And so, Dustin goes from mule deer mode to whitetail mode.
Yeah, I went straight, like, I am going to find this deer. Yes. This is my deer for the week, and I'm going to follow him. And later that morning, I'd met up with Jake on the other side, and he wasn't having any luck, and I'm like, I saw this deer. I know he's in these 2 canyons. I don't know where, but he's got to be in here somewhere. And you know, whitetail, like they just tuck you in somewhere and they're gone. Yeah. So anyway, I'm talking to him, and all of a sudden I look over and I see movement in these bushes, and it's just this tiny little, basically little drainage off of the top of this hill with some snowberry bushes, and I could see an antler in there. I'm like, oh, there's something, you know, those must be tall. I look, and there he is. He's 800 yards from me. Got the spotting scope on him, and he is laying down in these snowberry bushes and tucking his head, like laying his head flat down on the ground to get his antlers out of the sun.
Isn't that crazy, dude?
And I was like, all right.
And that's why he got that big.
It's exactly right.
Nobody ever sees him.
So I'm like, I'm going after him. He stood there on the spotter, and I'm like, just give me some hand signals if he's up or whatever. So I went down, got to about where I thought was like 50 yards, 52 yards, and sat for 2 hours and 45 minutes baking in the sun. And there was maybe 1 or 2 mile an hour wind, which is super odd for out here. Didn't get any wind, and then it just died, and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, you can't even move without.
Right.
Like,
so then I knew,
like you're like running through like
a
bunch of popcorn.
So and then I look up, and Jacob's standing up, and I'm like, crap, he's standing,
right.
Buck's standing. So I slowly get up, and he was not where I thought. He was down probably 30 yards, and he saw me and just took off running, and then I saw how big he was, and I was like, my goodness.
Yeah.
So I walked down to where he was laying, and it was literally a washout.
Okay.
That was probably 2 feet, just this little tiny washout, and he was laying down in that washout, and he just like snuggled down in there.
It's probably nice and cool in there.
Yep. Like, and the sun wasn't hitting him.
Yep.
So then, we saw pictures of how big he was. I ended up finding him the next morning.
Okay.
And then had a 3x3 muley that was really nice 3x3 still in velvet. And meanwhile, this drop tine whitetail is still in velvet too. So that was.
What were the dates of that?
That was October 3rd.
So weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And that. Okay, I'll let you get to that story before I talk.
So
go ahead.
So then I'm watching him. I'm like, man, I got him again. There's no way. And 3x3, he kind of got bumped by a coyote and did started up the hill and just about jumped on top of this whitetail. I mean, had to jump right over the top of him. And they both get up, turn, look, didn't know what's going on. And then they're gone.
Yeah.
Gone from my life forever.
Gone forever, as Matt would say. Gone forever.
Yeah, so that one, didn't see him again. We did see some really nice whitetails. We found quite a few deadheads, muleys, like 2-year-old deadheads. So that could have been, they could have had some sort of die-off out there, EHD or something like that.
Yep.
But other than that, the only thing that
you were finding those down by the water and stuff
yes,
too. It definitely is
back in the bays.
It's a sign of that for sure.
Yep, back in the bays. The last day I ended up, I was going to hike up this canyon and see if I could maybe wind bump a buck over to the other guys where they were at, just to get him to drop into basically where they were sitting.
Yeah.
And man, I hiked up some nasty stuff, and I got to the top and I'm huffing and puffing and like, holy cow, my heart rate's already at like 200 beats a minute. And just like that, I hear a rattlesnake. And I'm like, oh crap, where is he?
Yeah.
Yep, right by my foot.
Yep.
Like 2 feet away.
Rattlers, man.
So I got a rattlesnake, and
you were sending me pictures of your rattler. I was like, that's not a deer, Dustin.
Nope.
So the buck that the big whitetail, you saw him in velvet. It was in October, early October, October 3rd. We know that buck got shot in the rifle season because we've seen pictures. Was he out of velvet then?
Yes.
And that's what I thought, which is so weird that he would still be in velvet in early October.
We talked about that. Was he a stag?
Right. That's the
was
first
he not
thought.
Gonna shed?
Yeah.
We didn't know, and then we couldn't. We're trying to judge him from pictures, and you're trying to put a number on his antlers, and they just can't. And then once we saw the picture of him, he got harvested by a rifle hunter, which was a little. It is what it is. Obviously, the guy doesn't have orange on. The deer was like 6 miles from the nearest road, and this guy's standing there with a pickup and his kid. So I don't.
No comment.
No comment on how he got shot.
No comment.
Yeah, whether it was out the window of the pickup or what. But anyway, neither here nor there. That guy's got a nice trophy, and I got to chase a nice deer. But he actually had one antler tip coming out of his eye socket.
Really?
Yeah. So he had it coming out of his eye socket. He had a drop tine coming off of that side. He was real gnarly. And then the other side was just this big 5.
Okay.
So yeah, he wasn't that big out of velvet. I mean, he wouldn't have scored we thought he would have scored.
He was one of the deer that actually is much bigger in the velvet than some of them do. They just have like that, and they're almost like just massive inflammation when they're blooded up. You know what I mean? And then they come down and they're like pencil horned. Like I've seen it. I've hunted. When I was really into whitetail hunting in my younger days, like you'd have trail cam pics of these just monsters, and you're like, dude, look at all this. Gets a pop can based whitetail, and then they strip out and you're like, that's not the same deer, and it's totally the same deer, but
he's younger.
It's a bummer when that happens, but
so that was kind of the end of that hunt. We learned a lot. Probably gonna go back out. We got that one on the calendar again. Go back and try that out again.
I was so confused by the velvet on October 3rd.
I was too.
Don't have a rhyme or reason why that
multiple
would be.
Deer out there were.
Might have just been the area. I mean, I don't know how else you explain it when it's multiple deer. It's not just one.
No.
But the fact that you saw pictures after the fact, another 5 weeks, 6 weeks after, or whatever that 6 weeks probably about, like, that's, and he's out of velvet.
Right.
It's like so weird, just crazy. Wait for this train to go through here, and we'll keep rocking. But yeah, I mean, so then you have this hunt marked down again this year. So you're gonna go back October again, is what you're thinking?
Yeah. So Jacob, he's from Minnesota, so he's he has to wait till October 1st to hunt, or September 1st if you're hunting private land for archery. So we're gonna try it again this year.
Nice.
Maybe try some different areas.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, October? Do you do much in October?
Antelope hunted. Me and Devin went antelope hunting. We got a couple antelope in October. Those films are up on our YouTube channel, along with the archery deer hunt I just talked about too. And we got Devin a really nice antelope, like massive, heavy.
That's awesome.
Really good antelope. That was a fun hunt. That was like a really go out for the weekend together type hunt. I picked up that tag in the COVID turn back tag, so that was kind of cool. I actually didn't draw that. We applied in the same unit together, and he drew, I didn't. We had the same points. I just happened to be one of the unlucky ones that didn't draw, and then ended up picking up a turn back, so we still got to hunt together. And then I should draw that tag again now this year because I have another bonus point for it. So I'm kind of pumped to be able to maybe hit that up 2 years in a row. So that's my plans for October right now for this coming year. Along with, I got a couple buddies that have a fair amount of points for Black Hills elk. So I'm really hoping that one of them draws so I can go do that. Because obviously Dad, that's another thing I did in October. And that was October 1st right away, was Dad drew his Black Hills elk tag. And I went out there for several days prior to that season opener. Dad couldn't, so I was out there solo on that hunt, and I just actually lived off my little single man tent for a day or two as I scouted until I got into a group of bulls, and then kind of figured out where I wanted to set up. I got a wall tent and everything for Dad just to really experience that awesome wall tent deal out in the hills, make it more memorable for all of us, because that hunt for him was going to be his last elk hunt that he's going to draw in South Dakota. As far as Black Hills elk, he has so many Custer points, but still the chance of drawing, that's next to nil. So I wanted to make it a really good hunt, and so I camped out there for several nights. Actually got on a pretty good bull right away that had a really unique bugle, and dude, I lived on that bull for like 4 days. Had him pretty well what he was doing. He was coming down every single evening into this big meadow. And like I was actually camping out on the edge of that meadow, and he'd come down there with his cows every single night and bugle all night long. He was 150 yards from my tent several of those nights, and it was full moon, so I would literally unzip my tent and I would glass out, and I was literally looking at him at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and it was just epic. And so the night before, or the morning before, this would have been the last day of September, went up into this area, and the bulls were it was epic. I mean, ripping it up. There was 10, 12 bulls back in this canyon, and the bull that I was hoping my dad would shoot had his cows, and he was kind of just standing with his cows, keeping all the other bulls away, because all these other bulls were just swinging in, trying to steal some cows, and he was just he was definitely the biggest one in there. He was a big 6x7, and I just got up on top of this hill. I just texted Dad. I was like, dude, I wish you were out here right now, because I'm like, this is the most epic elk hunting morning. You want to just experience bulls just working and screaming, and I'm like, it was just so epic. And he got out there actually a couple hours after. He was already on the road. They left super early. And I got back to camp, and he was all pumped because I already had the wall tent set up and everything. And I was like, well, your tomorrow morning's probably going to be garbage, because this morning was so good. I can't imagine it gets any better than what I experienced this morning. And I told him about this bull, showed him pictures and video that I had of him, and he's like, oh, I'd shoot that bull. Because I did find one other bull that was bigger. That was probably a 350, 360 bull. But he was, I only saw him once, and he was way far back up in this nasty stuff. And I'm like, hey, we can keep him as a back pocket bull. And my dad was like, actually, I really like that 6x7. And I'm like, oh, well, he'll be down here in the morning. And he's like, what? I'm like, he'll be down here in the morning. He comes down every, and he thought I was joking. And, all night long, about 1 a.m., I heard him bugle off the top of this ridge. And I'm like, oh, yep, there he is. And just every hour he'd let out a bugle in the middle of the night. And I just kept thinking to myself, oh yeah, dude, we're going to kill that bull. That's him. And so I get up, hour and a half before light, and I get out the wall tent. I get out my 1556s, and I glass out into that meadow. And I hear him bugle, and I'm like, and I glass him up, and he's out there in the dark, So I go back in the tent. I'm like, tell my brother and my dad, I was like, you guys need to be quiet. I'm like, your bull's out there at 300 yards right now. So I'm like, just keep it down there. You're getting ready. Don't use anything but your headlamp. Don't turn on the lanterns. And my dad thought I was joking. I'm like, I'm dead serious. I'm like, you're going to kill this. You're going to walk out of your tent 10 yards and probably kill this bull. It was more than 10 yards, it was probably 50 yards. But it literally like that. We went up and set up and waited for legal time. And that bull actually ended up running off chasing a cow. And he actually came back down then to get his other. I knew he would. I was like, let's just stay here. I'm like, he's not going to leave his other 8 cows.
No.
Come back down, 10 minutes later, and he picked up his other cows. My dad drilled him, dropped him one shot, and just... It was just awesome. Epic. It was just epic, dude. My dad's like, I thought you were joking about I'm like, no, this bull been doing the same thing. So it was just epic. I actually didn't even mean to get into that story as long as I did there, but it was good. I haven't really talked about that yet on the podcast, so it was just so epic, dude. I mean,
yeah, we're just such an epic just kind of going over the whole year. So that was part of your year too.
It was so epic, dude. Just seeing Dad get that bull and just being able to go out.
That's super cool, though. Yeah. I mean, that whole experience of like getting out there, scouting, finding them, living with them, basically, learning them. You know, not a lot of people get to do that, so that's kind of a different aspect in itself.
And I felt lucky that I got to do that. And again, like I look back at, I was, that was only 6 weeks after I was in Nevada. Mm-hmm. And when I went out there solo and did that, it was like nothing to me. So I'm like, it was crazy how I had that much like growth, just like confidence and growth from, that experience I had 5-6 weeks prior, and how it carried over to like me going out there and doing that solo for 4 days, 3-4 days prior to that hunt, just gearing up and prepping for my dad for that hunt and being able to do that confidently and just like without a stress and a worry. And I really enjoyed it. Like that one to me was the exact opposite of what kind of Nevada was.
Right.
I had such a, more of a joy and connection with it, but it probably was too, is I was closer, something was going wrong, you're closer to somebody, you're hours away versus a day away. So that made a difference, but it was just cool, man. And now just all the knowledge getting built for some buddies of mine that are, they're hoping to hunt that same area, and that I can hopefully help them have that kind of experience. It's just, I hope that can happen again this year for us. So
yeah,
and that was October, man. It was like that elk hunt and that antelope hunt. I had another COVID turnback tag antelope that I took Eva out, and we shot a doe antelope together. She did awesome. Hiked in a mile by herself.
That's cool.
And hiked back out a mile. She stocked up with me to like 80 yards on the antelope. Shot it with me, so she did like the whole thing. And all those ones are up on our YouTube channel, so you can check out all those. That was a pretty cash film, like Amy and me just kind of self-filmed it. Like Matthew wasn't able to do all the hunts with us this year, so some of them are more like vlog style filmed, which was actually kind of fun, just a change up of pace of what we've been doing for the previous 7-8 seasons. So
yeah,
that was cool. And then obviously that kind of takes us right into November. I mean,
yeah, my November, I did a couple of hunts with my girls. They had their mentor tags again. Mm-hmm. My middle one, Gretchen, she was kind of on the fence about it. Yeah, I want to do it. No, I don't want to do it. So I'm like, whatever, it's a $5 tag. I'll just get it.
Yeah.
We'll go out. We kind of had, the weather kind of went up and down in November.
It was.
So we went out a couple of warm days, and Gretchen didn't want to go. Okay, took Sammy and Natalie. We both went out. We saw some deer. We're sitting in a big box blind, and Natalie's like, Dad, can we like get out and go after them? I'm like, yes, we can. Let's go.
Spot. She wants to spot and stack.
Yes. I'm like, yes, we do. So
great.
We got out and went down and didn't end up seeing them. We walked up about probably 250 yards, and they had made their way through the CRP, and we couldn't find them. So, but yeah, we didn't end up having any luck on that, and it was pretty cool because we went out like the last day of the season in December.
Yeah.
And we went over to, some public stuff that had a lot of deer, and we saw some. We jumped out of the vehicle, got set up on one, and couldn't get a shot. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, wow, that's not.
That's not what we really want to do.
We don't want to jump out of the truck and just shoot something.
Yeah, right.
But we ended up not getting it, and on the way back, she was like, Dad, we got to do this and this and this. And she was kind of planning like what we needed to do better. And I was like, that's really cool. You learned from that, cool, and dude. How, taking different things that we did the year before, mm-hmm. and, we didn't have enough time to do this. We should do this. So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And we weren't pushing it. It was just kind of casual and mm-hmm. easy. But so yeah, we did a couple mentor hunts, and then I had Trav, who went on the sheep hunt with us this year. Him and a few guys come out every November and archery hunt for a week. So that leading up to that, I had some elevated kidney function numbers in my treatment process. So I was not able to get my regular chemo treatments every 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. They ended up putting me on a bunch of steroids, like 80 milligrams of prednisone.
Let's go.
So Dustin did not sleep much and was running 100 miles an hour for about 5 months.
Which is also super healthy. I mean,
yes.
That's super good for you to be like on a 5-month meth binger.
yes. So, yeah, they're the kind of steroids that give you a fat face and a bad attitude if you don't work them off. So I was just going to work it.
You were always working.
Yeah. So I ended up running out, took 2 trips out to put trail cams up and then put stands up for those guys. Mm-hmm. And I had a blast doing that. It was really fun doing some scouting for those guys, similar to like what you did for your dad.
And I really feel like that was like the highlight of your season. Like you talked a lot about it.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that was like it was special for you.
It was kind of one of those things where if you can help somebody out at any point, help them out.
Absolutely.
And that was my way. Like, I'm closer. I can run out and put some cams up. And we kind of knew some areas. And they got there, and we pulled the cards the first day, and we found a really nice whitetail. And he kind of had like this one brow tine that had like a moose paddle almost. Mm-hmm. I mean, the biggest one on the camera. And, Trav's like, I'm going after that one. I'm like, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
And so, he ended up... like the second evening, he ended up shooting that one, and he calls me. He's like, God, I just got the moose paddle bug. I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
Like, he's the biggest deer we have on camera. This never happens,
right. Right, and not that fast.
Right. So, I hiked down there, and he's laying over there probably 100 yards from where he shot him. And we took some pictures, did the pack out, kind of did that stuff together. It was super cool.
And his first, quarter out of the year pack out.
Yeah.
So great learning thing for him, he's learning all these new things.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Minnesota, growing up, we would, you got your deer and you drag it for days,
Yeah.
If it's 2 miles in there, you're dragging a whole body 2 miles.
I think, so many of us, no matter where we grew up, that's just what we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was just you drag your deer. You didn't really know, pack it out. We didn't know how to do that.
I wouldn't want to drag where his was at.
No.
That was a big hill to climb.
A big hill. I know exactly where you're at.
So
it's nasty.
Yeah, we got that out, and, we were jacked. We had one down in camp, and, that next day, I went up a different spot, and that evening, and same thing. I was looking for a mature deer, not a monster. I was just looking for a mature deer, and I just wasn't finding them.
Yeah.
A muley, I should say. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of really nice whitetails, but I was too far away. Saw them with the glass, but wasn't able to get close to them. And they were rutting hard, so it was you had to be in the right place at the right time type of thing. So anyway, I got up on this ridge, and I had 2 4x4 8-pointers down below me that were just pushing this doe around, and they were nice deer. And I was watching them. They were about 150 yards, but I was also watching this other area where there was some more muleys. Mm-hmm. And so then that night I went back and all right, tomorrow I'm going to hike way around and, go way around this huge field. But I had to get down on the bottom of the ravine.
Yeah.
And then another guy, Brian, that was he's like, oh, I'm going to go down there with you. So we hiked in together, and I'm like, hey, if you don't see, because he really wanted a mule deer too. I'm like, if you're not seeing anything, look right here. And I gave him the pin on Onyx. I'm like, this is that bench that they were rutting that doe on. Check that out. So, I hike way around, and I didn't see much. Really a long hike. I went 6.5 miles.
Yeah.
And I was a little frustrated, and I got up on a knob where I got service again, and Brian texted me. He's like, I got one. And I'm so like, awesome, no way. So that was pretty cool. And then come to find out, it was one of those deer, and I had pictures and phone scope video of it from the night before. And he ended up shooting it 135 yards from where my pin was that I gave him. So I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah. And both with a bow,
yes.
Just so epic.
Yeah, and it was a great story too. He got up in there and he said he could see it, mm-hmm. and he bumped him out. And the one ran down probably 15 yards away from him and just stood there, but he was behind a tree. Another one came up, and so then he was in the middle of a doe and 2 of these bucks.
Yep.
the bucks thought that he was the other buck, so they were gonna go, and he said he, walked right to him, all bristled up, ready to fight.
So awesome.
Shot him at like 15 yards. So
awesome.
So that was a cool hunt. I did not end up filling a tag. The one muley that I was after glassed up a couple times. He got shot in the rifle season, so he won't be there next year.
But hopefully there'll be another one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So no, that was that hunt, but that was kind of my like the highlight. I had so much fun doing that and burning off those steroids.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Just be moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually forgot our October. Like I forgot my dad also had that. My dad drew a bison tag in Custer too.
Oh.
And so I forgot about that. So we went out there and that was just like a 1-day deal. You just go out there. It's not a difficult hunt. It's just very unique and special. Because there's not very many tags. They draw for that every year. And so yeah, he took out my great grandfather's 1894 model Winchester 30-30 and he shot his buffalo with that. So it was just really cool. Kind of a special deal on the monstrous animal. I mean, so cool.
Yeah.
And you just get to learn a lot from the guy that's out there that handles that hunt for Custer State Park. So that was really cool. And then turned around November, we kind of did our normal thing. I had a West River tag, went out with a buddy. We killed a nice mule deer. There really wasn't much of a story behind it. We were out, and I can't remember. It was on the second. We killed it on the second day. First day we didn't see anything, and then I think we killed it on the second day. So yeah, we were just coming back in from pretty far out, and we were actually kind of ending our day. And this deer actually just like he was nose to the ground running and ran in front of us like 80 yards, and I pulled up my binos. It was like the last 10 minutes of legal time. Pulled up my binos, and I was like, dude, that's a good deer.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm going to shoot him. And so we shot him, and he ended up being like a mid-170s, pushing that number, pushing that 80 mark again. So we ended up shooting him, and we passed up. It was kind of funny because that morning, like the opening morning right before, we passed up a monster 3x3 that he probably pushed 160, just straight 3x3.
Those are so cool.
And my buddy was pretty pissed at me for passing him. He was like, dude, you probably should shoot that deer. He's like, I don't know if there's bigger deer out here than that, and because we were hunting some stuff that just isn't known for like the deer density in that area is not where I hunted in the past. There's just not a lot of deer, so something like that, he's like, yeah, and I'm like, well, I want to go hunt up in this other area that I've always wanted to go up into, so I'm like, hopefully these ones just stay here. And so we passed it, and we passed up another couple of just average ones. So it was cool that the passing up paid off again.
Yeah,
that's kind of the story of my last several seasons is just passing up deer that are pretty dang good for that opportunity of a really good one. So that paid off again. That was my November, dude. Nothing else much in November. Turned around in December, and me and Devin had a not a mule deer tag, a muzzleloader tag. And so we went out, broke out the wall tent again, and we backcountry that hunt. I should say backcountry as in general as backcountry you can get in South Dakota, but some large chunks of land that you have to put in some miles, and we camped it out, had fun. Devin passed up several decent bucks. Never found one that he really wanted to shoot, and so that was kind of that. I mean, we had a lot of fun. Freaking cold nights, like 0.
Yeah.
It was cold, and it was fun though. We got to have a lot of fun doing that. And I'm struggling with remembering my year this year, man. It goes to show you how fast this year went. Actually, I did have something else in November. My wife had a Black Hills mule deer tag. She was one of the 100 people to draw that tag.
That's cool.
So we were out there for a week doing that. She didn't kill one. We actually didn't see a ton of big bucks. We saw one that probably pushed 170 that we went after hard and just never could find it. And then she got a shot at a decent one on like second to the last day we were out, and she just shot high, shot right over the back. Yeah, we didn't see a ton of like big shooter bucks besides that one. We saw a ton of bighorn sheep, which was awesome. Filmed a lot of bighorn sheep and just had a freaking great time out there hunting. And yeah, you definitely don't do that hunt to shoot a monster. I mean, there's not the quality isn't like what it is on the prairie, but it's a special hunt regardless. We had a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of an action-packed year as much as I didn't feel like it was. But it definitely was. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a good season. I think everything just seemed to run together because of the environment we were in 2020.
Yeah, everybody wanted to do something that was not get told what to do.
That's exactly
do
what
your own thing, and
that's how I live my life anyway. So. You know that.
Yep. No, I mean this year this year's actually harder from, everything that we've been hearing and reading. Canadian border's still closed. Africa's, they're iffy on
probably.
Yeah, iffy on that, if that's going to happen. So a lot of these guys that are hunting these western states, or that had trips over there that didn't go last year and aren't going to go this year, are applying for western states and applying for tags for out here. I know South Dakota had over 1,000 more applicants for archery.
Yeah.
Out-of-state hunters alone this year than last year. So that's going to be interesting to see how much added pressure that puts on.
It's going to be rough, dude.
Yeah, and it going from, I want to say it's like 2,500 to 3,500. So that's quite a jump.
Yeah.
And then as far as the draw statistics, most of the western states, from what I am hearing, are up anywhere from 18 to 25%.
Yeah, it's insane. Even Justin told me, the amount of people that, the amount of people he has that applies to his outfitter pool in New Mexico, and the amount of people that actually drew is massively down. Percentage of success wise,
right?
That he normally draws. The last couple of years, it's just been a lot tougher. So there's just way more applicants going into that pool.
Yeah, and a lot of these applicants too are guys that are holding 16 to 18 points and that buy preference points every year. That are like, okay, I'm going to cash them in this year.
Yep.
And they're going to draw the tags, which
they
good on
the
them.
Yep,
that's what it's for.
Exactly.
But no, I think I talked to another guy and he said once Canada opens back up, that's basically 2 years of no hunting. So if you're going to get a trophy quality animal, you're going to want to get into Canada when it opens back up, because there's some giant bears, deer. I mean, there's also a lot of locals that hunt up there, but a lot of their hunting is from non-resident hunters.
Yeah, it's a big part of their economy.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Same with fishing, fly-in fishing. So.
Yeah, hopefully that just opens up, but we'll see what happens.
It takes a little pressure off of around here.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm pumped for the season, man. I think I was telling you the other day how excited I was for the coming year. Like the last couple of years, my excitement level hasn't been as high. I've definitely toned back. I've still had a lot of hunts, but I've toned back the amount of days I'm gone on those hunts. So I've actually hunted a little less total days-wise on the last couple of years, which has been good. I needed to tone it back a little bit. But this year, I finally have that excitement a little bit back. I'm really excited for the coming season and to have some fun, to go out. I'm just really looking forward to it, man. I'm glad to have a little bit of that stoked fire back. From just toning it back for the last 2 seasons a little bit. So
I think we talked about this previously too, that doing those smaller chunks of time, but going harder
in those chunks,
that time where you are like ultra focused.
Yes.
Get in there, focus on that, block everything else out that's outside influence, and just concentrate on that. Absolutely. Versus trying to get 25 sits in a tree stand in a year. Just concentrate on certain days, or 25 stocks on an animal. There's something to be said for that.
No, I agree. It helped me out. I don't know. I needed, we were both in that same boat, kind of in the same time frames. We talked about it. We podcasted over that a year ago or 18 months ago, whatever it was. But yeah, how important it is and how it's going to ebb and flow. Like, we have to just be aware and be self-aware of those feelings of that, and okay, take action on those feelings. And how do I improve this? How do I correct it? We can't just feel that way and continue to do the same things over and over again, because obviously those feelings aren't going to change then. We have to do things in our life to correct the way we feel. If that feeling's negative, we have to do things to correct the way and correct those negative feelings and turn them into positive. So what are we doing? You know what I mean? And we take action on that. Make an action plan, stick to it, have the discipline, have the self-discipline to do it, and fix it. And then therefore, for me, even going into this year, okay, I fixed this problem. Well, don't go back to what it was 3 seasons ago and be dumb again. You know what I mean? It's still then applying what we learned on how to maximize the way you feel and maximize everything. So, yeah, as I'm planning this year, just because I'm excited about it doesn't mean I'm going to spend 90 days in the field over 2 months, over 3.5, 4 months. I still have to be almost bad math that I almost said 90 days in 2 months. That's impossible.
It'd be tough.
So anybody who's really good at math,
you can time travel back or
redo these days. So yeah, I mean, it's about being smart, man, and I think that just comes with experience, self-awareness, and just some maturity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. Anything else, man? As we're getting ready, we're gonna probably hopefully get together and do some more podcasts here this summer as we're prepping for our 2021 season. Let's get into some prep podcasts, get back in the flow of a few of these hunting podcasts. We've been doing a lot of just like lifestyle and other style podcasts, which is good because we want to talk about things more than just freaking mule deer hunting. You know what I mean? There's other things in life that are really important, but a big passion of what we do is also this. And so we're really looking forward to gearing up to our pre-prep season of 2021. So we'll have more of these coming up.
Yeah, and we just want to give a quick rundown of last season, kind of a short and to the point. We're at a little over an hour and 10 minutes, but it's kind of tough. You're running over two hunters of
that's a lot of hunts right
4
there,
months of hunting.
Minutes.
Right.
Yeah, but it was good though. There's the quick stories for you guys, just to hear a little bit about our, each one of those could be an hour story.
Oh, for sure.
But there's also, we don't need to do that every year. If this just wasn't the year for us to do it, we weren't going to sit down and do that. So you got the condensed version today, and hope you guys enjoyed it and had a lot of fun. And just be on the watch for as our summer 2021 podcast, our prepping season starts to hit. It'll be a fun year. We got hopefully some good tags coming up. It's been quiet so far in the tag draws, but there'll be some stuff coming up. So
still coming out.
Yep, exactly. All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.